God, we ask for preaching power. We're asking for the grace to run this Christian race. We're asking that you would open up our minds that we might think more like you, our hearts that we might feel what you feel. Open our ears to hear what thus saith the Lord. Give us grace this morning. It's in your matchless and marvelous name we pray. Amen. Psalm 20. I'm going to read it from two translations. Follow me. You may stay seated. Psalm 20. In the old Bibles, you probably won't see it on your smartphone or your tablet, but the King James and the New King James will tell you who wrote a particular psalm. There are 150 psalms, P-S-A-L-M. They're songs, and they were written to be sung. And someone has said, if you want to know what people believe, listen to what they listen to. So we have in our culture, kids between 8 and 18, they don't listen to the same thing we listen to. They know nothing about Marvin Gaye and Tammy Terrell. But if you're my age, you do know about them, and they don't know anything about the Tempting Temptations. They might not even know Bobby Brown. It just depends on the age group. They definitely don't know about Ray Charles because they think that Jamie Foxx was Ray Charles from the movie, but they don't know that Ray Charles did one of the greatest renditions of America the Beautiful, and he can see, and he saw more in America than the people who can see.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Do I have a witness here?
Yes,
they might not even know who Whitney Houston is, even though, Kim, your daughter's age group, y'all named a bunch of y'all children Whitney. Y'all don't even know that Whitney from New Jersey. Y'all didn't know she's from Brother Hobson's hometown. Y'all didn't know that. And y'all, they might know who Boyz II Men is. I don't know. But so I grew. When Bernard was a little boy in 1988, that was the beginning of the music videos that were on BET. How many of y'all remember Donnie Simpson? He had those blue, grayish eyes. Music videos. But if you really want to know what people believe, listen to what they listen to. Listen to what they listen to. So in this text here, this particular Psalm, Psalm 20, it says it was to the chief musician, a psalm of David. So when anybody's the chief, that means they the head, they in charge, right? Like your mama is the chief in your house, right? Until your daddy gets home. To the chief, you know, when I was in the Army, Brother Miller, and I would come home. I went to the Fillmore here in El Paso, went in my entire career. And boy, I didn't know it was cold out in the desert. I had desert, dust, sand in places I didn't think you could get sand. And I remember one time I was coming home, Katie, from the field, dirty, hungry, feeling some kind of way. And I heard one of my children say, "He's home." And that meant everybody had to come because the chief held to the chief. He's home. And anything that mother had threatened them with, I'm going to tell your daddy. How many of y'all remember I'm going to tell your daddy was? This says to the chief musician, And David was a singer and a songwriter. Write that down. You won't remember that. King David, before he was a singer and a songwriter. And he wrote most of the Psalms. Yes, sir. This one, it says, he wrote this one to remind the people of the assurance of God's saving word. You know, you got to be sure that your baby daddy love you, right? It ain't enough to just say it. You got to prove it. So, Brother Milner, Brother Hobbs, I've been married 41 years now. So by now, if my wife don't know it, something wrong with me or her. Yeah. The assurance. And we live in a world where people need to have some kind of assurance that God is God. And we have to be honest this week. If we're honest, we mad. Yes, sir. But are we mad at God or are we mad at our countrymen? So here's what David says. He said, may the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. Well, may the name of God, the God of Jacob, defend you. And in our tradition, black church tradition, them old deacons used to pray. They'd come up and pray before we had these praise teams. They would lead the devotional, and the deacon might say, you know, I come to you now, God, knee bent and body bowed, and I'm praying to the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. And what they were trying to say to us is that God has a long resume with us, and we have one with him. Y'all don't know when to shout. I haven't even started preaching yet. That's what they were saying. You can take this to the bank. And those of you who were raised in church, who went to church in the 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, you know what those old deacons and preachers were trying to say to us was to hold on to God, unchanging hand. He won't ever let you down because we have a long resume with him. He said, may the name of the God of Jacob defend you. Because God's character, Jacqueline, is contained in his name. We say it in a trite kind of way, El Shaddai, but it means God our peace. We think we know something about Jehovah Jireh, which means God our provider. But do you know, if you've never been in a situation where God had to provide, you can't say that with any kind of confidence. Yes, sir. And then in the Israelites, God's name was so sacred, they couldn't even say it. Yahweh. They left those vowels because they said his name was so sacred that when we look back at Moses, their first lawgiver and first prophet, when he encountered God in the book of Exodus on the backside of the mountain, he said, God, show me who you are. And God said, take your shoes off. This is holy ground. And he said, but you can't look at me and live. He said, I'll show you my hinder parts. I'm going to come by. So David says, he knows all of this, and he says, may the name of the God of Jacob defend you. And Jacob was a liar and a trickster. We would never talk about Jacob at our family reunions, would we? Because we all know who the bad people are in our family, right? You ever been on a reunion, and your mom said, we don't talk about cousin so-and-so, you know. But they said, but Mama, you say he got a drinking problem. He going to get tore up from the floor up before this meeting is over. And you ever hit your children and say, don't say that, you know. And my wife and I, when they were little, we were visiting with our family members on my side. And my children came and said, Mama, they got roaches. And I said, shh, because I didn't want them to be cussed out by one of their family members. But I know y'all don't have family members like that. I get it. But think about this. David includes Jacob, a liar and a trickster, in this. And it's supposed to be something sacred. He said, may the name of the God of Jacob defend you. May he send you help from the sanctuary and strengthen you out of Zion. May he remember all your offerings, accept your burnt sacrifice. May he grant you according to your heart's desire and fulfill your purpose. We will rejoice in your salvation. In the name of God, we will set up our banners. May the Lord fulfill all your petitions. Petitions have to do with prayer. And now I know that the Lord saves his anointed. He will answer him from his holy heaven with saving strength, with the saving strength of his right hand. The right hand always represents the power and the strength of God. Some trust in chariots, some in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. They have bowed down and fallen, but we have risen upright. Save, Lord, may the King answer us when we call. So, I want to talk about trusting in God in spite of it all. You turn to your neighbor and say, Pastor's going to talk about trusting in God in spite of it all. Y'all, now, all of y'all didn't do it. You'll have to do it again. You know, parents, you have to repeat stuff over and over again to get y'all to. Pastor's going to preach about trusting God in spite of it all. Verse 7, I'm going to back into that, Reverend Jones. Kind of, sort of, says out loud, screams at us about the importance of trusting in God. Well, trusting in the God of the universe. Trusting God. And I was listening to preachers and talking to preacher pastors this week. And I concluded, Brother Hobson, one of them gave me the permission to say to y'all, it's okay to be angry. Yeah, turn your neighbor and say, I'm angry. I'm angry about this election. It's okay. And if you don't, I got the microphone. It's okay to be angry. Yeah. Everything about being angry is just not a bad emotion. Sometimes you have to be angry enough to change your situation. You ever seen people and know people who are stuck on stupid? I call that SOS. They keep doing the same thing over and over again, expecting a different result. They get in the same kind of relationships over and over again, expecting a different result. I call that being stuck on stupid. Yeah. So the people in power think that black people are stuck on stupid. But the trick is on them. We have taught our children that character matters. And that you ought to be honest. And we taught them that a real man does not put women down. And so for the past 10 years, we've been dealing with somebody who managed to get in office in 2016, who goes against the grain of everything we taught our children. And we thought in our pilgrimage in this country that we were at a place where our countrymen would be able to see the truth and honor the truth. So we're not really mad at God, we're mad at our countrymen. Yes, sir. Because if we're honest with ourselves, those of y'all who look like me, if you're honest with yourself, you realize that there are a whole lot of code words that seek to take us back to what was happening 40, 50 years ago. And we never believed that it was possible that we would see it in our lifetime. Lord, have mercy. And so, how do you trust God when you're feeling some kind of way? How do you trust God when you're angry? Another person I heard, other friends of mine I talked to, mostly pastors, because we grapple with, because we thought that y'all were going to come back to church after the pandemic, but it didn't happen. And we thought that, that y'all would, God brought you through and you live in this moment because of God, and you made it through with all those people who died during the pandemic, and you made it. And those of you online, you didn't come back to church. You didn't need church. and your children went wild, and your grandchildren went wild. But you kept trying to trust God. And so how do you trust God? And one guy said, you can trust God even when you're grieving. Because I don't know, Jacqueline, for me, I've been through these different stages of grief. I'm not sure which one I'm at yet. I'm not at the negotiating stage yet, Marilyn. Because there's stages of grief, but it's okay to grieve what you're feeling. It's okay. Nudge your neighbor and say, it's okay. Because at the end of the day, we got to learn how to trust God. Because before you, it's okay to have despair, but don't stay there. It's okay to have rage, but don't stay there. Because you got to have enough sense to pay attention to what's going on so that you can protect yourself, protect your family, protect your community. You got to be prepared for what's coming. Yeah. David was a warrior and a worshiper. Yes, he was. In other words, he knew how to be tough on the job and tender at home. He understood that his job, his position was a call to lead Israel and that there were battles to be faced. And so Psalm 20, see, y'all are familiar with 23, but you're not familiar with 20, 21, and 22. 20 and 21 and 22 is really a prayer of the people for David. And they said, our leader has to lead us in battle, but we want to pray for David. Now, David wrote this song coming out of this sense that the people were praying for him as the leader, knowing that he needed God to guide him and to guide them. The worshiper in David said, may the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. And so if prayer is anything, it is about asking. Jesus said in Matthew 7, in the New Testament, ask and it shall be given you, seek and you shall find. Now, any of us who have raised children and grandchildren know that children don't have no problem asking. When our children were little, I know you weren't like this, Jacqueline, but they would come at me in different ways. And I might say, well, what did your mother say? And then their attitude was, don't worry about what mama said. This is what we're saying right now, because this is what we want, and this is what you should do. So if prayer is anything, it is asking, and prayer is also anticipating. Yeah, we couldn't wait till Christmas came. Do y'all remember? Even though we didn't have a whole lot, we get to November, Thanksgiving, we noticed the food got better. Thanksgiving, boy, and we would anticipate. I remember when G.I. Joes came out. I lived long enough, Jacoby. I know that don't mean nothing to you, but I remember when G.I. Joes came out. Fighting man from head to toe. And we wanted a G.I. Joe. Yeah, we wanted a G.I. Joe. I remember when them Barbie dolls came out. See, the first Barbie doll was a white girl with blonde hair and blue eyes. There wasn't no ethnic Barbie dolls. Not at all. I remember my sister, they got this black doll, Sister Millie. You remember that could walk? It was a big doll. It could walk. Y'all remember that doll? Huh? Y'all don't remember that doll. But we watched those commercials just like the white kids, so we wanted what they wanted. And I remember one time, just as a child, learning how to pray. I was in this foster home, the first one I was in. And, I discovered after being there a while that foster children didn't get a lot. All right, we didn't get a whole lot. My friends were getting all kinds of stuff. I might get one or two things. And Sister Milton, I had to act like I liked whatever I got. Because you couldn't act ungrateful. Now the children get mad at you on Christmas Day, but you couldn't act ungrateful because you didn't want to get your teeth knocked out on Christmas Day. Y'all are so serious here, but y'all. And I remember one time, I never forgot this, Brother Hobson. I would pray. I was praying that particular Christmas. I said, Lord, help my dad. I told the Lord, make my daddy come here. We had cell phones and stuff like that. He would show up. My biological father would come wherever he had 4 little children. He would come wherever we were. And I remember praying because I had this sneaky suspicion I wasn't going to get much for Christmas that year. But Sister Pulley, I had this sense of prayer and petition, because children cut through all this stuff. See, y'all get real formal with God. And I just say, God, make him come and bring me something that I've been hoping for and that I anticipate. And so my father showed up. You can't tell me God don't answer prayer. He showed up, and he had presents. And that particular year, Brother Milner, I got some Tonka toys that were indestructible. You could not get rid. You couldn't tear up a Tonka toy if you wanted to. I got a Jeep, Army Jeep, and the Army truck, the deuce and a half. And I got the little green Army men to go, you added those to them. You couldn't tell me nothing. Because when children pray and things happen, you can't tell. When y'all pray and it doesn't happen, y'all get mad. And then you stop coming to church. And if something happens that's really bad, that shakes you to the core of your being, you say, I stopped believing God. And there's a spirit out there that wants us to stop believing God because what we believed in humanity didn't happen. But we got, as Kamala Harris said, we got to keep fighting. Preach, Pastor. Yeah. It's okay to be mad. It's okay to grieve. But you got to get to that place where you negotiate. You got to get to all the social workers and know what I'm telling you. You got to get, I could charge y'all for what I'm giving y'all this morning. Because y'all go to counseling tomorrow, they're going to charge y'all. What I'm giving y'all this morning, after y'all on the couch, I could charge y'all. How many of y'all got track hair? I take track hair and VA. Take it off. May the Lord answer you in the day of trouble. May the name of God of Jacob defend you. And may he send you help from the sanctuary. Wow. Now, in this psalm, they'll talk about Zion. Zion always represents the presence and the place of God at the highest point, Zion. And then when it talks about the sanctuary, it's talking about the temple that David would build and Solomon would build. And the temple and the sanctuary is where God's presence is. And we took it to a whole nother level. You've never been to a white church named Mount Zion. But you've been to a whole bunch of black churches named Mount Zion. There's something about this Bible and that we identify with the God and the characters who are in this Bible. We go back to Adam and Eve, and we identify with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob. We identify with David, who was not a perfect human being, but who had enough sense to talk to God. And the people around him said, we got to pray for our leader. So there's a spirit out there, they're going to blame her for what happened. I thought she did a great job in 107 days. But one of the things that I do know, preach, Pastor, is that we're not ready for a woman, much less a black woman, to be in charge. Yeah. We're not ready. They had a hard time in 2008 and 2012. But there's no reason that a woman with her qualifications should be our president. But we're not mad at God. We're really mad at our countrymen. Because 75, 80 million of them voted for the past. But we forget that it was really close in terms of numbers. That half of us said, no, we want to move on. So, here's 3 things I want to give you before I go to my seat. So I may not get there. If you're going to trust God, first thing you got to do is you got to trust in prayer. Write that down. You're not going to remember it. Young people, y'all remember what I just said? Pastor said you got to trust in prayer. And so they're asking, well, what is prayer? Well, prayer is shaking hands with God. Prayer is the circulation of the religious blood. Prayer is bringing all of earth to God and bringing all of God to earth. Somebody said you ought to whisper a prayer in the morning. And you ought to whisper one at noonday. You ought to whisper a prayer in the evening. And prayer is stretching out and saying, Father, I stretch my hands to thee, no other help I know. I'm putting everything I have in there. And if there ever was a time that we ought to find our way back to the sanctuary, it ought to be now. Yeah. You think you're going to make it without God? You think you're going to make it without the church? You think you're going to make it? You think, yeah, in the sanctuary, yeah, is where you find faith and you find fellowship and where you find friendship. Somebody said, what a friend we have in Jesus, all our sins and griefs to bear. What a privilege it is to carry everything to God in prayer. You find faith and you find out how to activate your faith. So I was having a problem the other day, Brother Miller, with my heater, air conditioner. The weather out here was being crazy, right? 1 minute you need the air conditioner on, and next minute you don't, right? And my wife had left before me, because she comes out here at 5:30 in the morning. Somebody said 5:30, that's early, huh? Y'all hadn't even turned over yet, have you? 5:30 in the morning with these kids. She's out here 5:30 in the morning. And, sometimes it seems like she knows more than I do when it comes to mechanical kinds of things. I'm not admitting that. I say it seems like it. I didn't say that it was. It just seemed like it. But she was gone. And so I said, why isn't this heater working? Why isn't, the system, nice modern system, spend all this money to get this house, and then they tell you that stuff's not supposed to break down. Then you find out, those of y'all in a hurry to become grown, you got to have insurance for everything. You got to have homeowners insurance. You got to have insurance on your car. And then parents, if you got Freddie the freeloader living at home, you got to have insurance on him. Y'all are so serious here. You got to have insurance on all the children. And man, this thing's not working. And here in El Paso, there's always somebody say they can fix something for you. So you taking your chances. As soon as you have a problem, somebody riding up your street says, I ain't fixed that for you. How you know I have a problem? So Marilyn, what I did, it was ingenious. It was an epiphany. It was God. He said, unplug everything related to this heating and cooling system and then plug it back in. And you know what happened? The heater came on. I unplugged everything, plugged it back in, went to the thermostat, and because it was cold in the house, and I was mad. And it was the day after the election, so I was madder. And it was cold. But I have a warranty that promises that if you need to replace it, we'll replace it. And if we have to, we'll go back to the manufacturer to get what you need. Y'all don't know when to shout. In this psalm, David is saying whatever you need is in the sanctuary where God is. And some of your problems, you got to send it back to the manufacturer. You have to send your problems back to the one who created the heavens and the earth and created you. And you got to believe God can and that he will answer your prayers. The text says, if he answered Jacob, he'll answer you. Say he strengthened you out of Zion. May he remember all your offerings, all your sacrifices. How many of y'all remember the things that the people who raised you sacrificed for you to get to the moment that you're in right now? You owe them a shout on credit. How many when you were too crazy, you didn't have the sense you were born with, got in all kinds of trouble, but your grandmama, somebody kept praying for you. Saying, Lord, don't let this boy go down the wrong. And there were people that God sent in your path in the providence, in the sovereignty of who he is, and you're living in this moment. But we cannot let this moment pass because our children need us. We cannot let this moment pass. We cannot despair too long. We cannot act like we don't know what's going on. And we got to take seriously what Kamala Harris said, we won't go back. You have to make up your mind. Say, I won't go back. Brother Hosson, we deployed too many times to go back. We're patriots more so than they are. We're law-abiding citizens. We believe that character matters. We believe, because we know what we know. Ain't nobody stronger than a black woman. Clap, clap, clap. I ain't got but one or two. I know y'all don't want to believe that. But when I did the analysis and found out that the women that don't look like y'all didn't vote like y'all did. By a long shot. Was that song y'all sang a few weeks ago? And college students. We send our children to the finest universities in the world. But them fellas wearing those crew cuts and those shag haircuts, they voted in bigly numbers for number 47. And it wasn't true that black men, young black, weren't going to vote for her. There's some who did. They stupid enough to believe that. They don't understand that in that document that they came out with, that they're gonna normalize stop and frisk. Yeah, that came out under Rudy Giuliani in New York in the 90s. How do you remember that? Stop. That means they can stop you, but they ain't got to have no reason to stop you. But I refuse to give up. Yeah, I'm going to trust in the power of prayer, and I'm going to pray God's promises. Because it's the same David who in Psalm 23 said, the Lord is my shepherd. And when I was deployed with those soldiers in 2003, 37 kilometers from the Iraqi border, going up and down those base camps and talking with soldiers and listening to soldiers, and even some of the soldiers died that I talked to. Their favorite scripture was Psalm 23. If they may not have been very religious, everybody knew Psalm 23, man. Everybody knew that the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. There's one translation, Maria says, the Lord is my shepherd, I lack nothing. So I'm going to continue to trust God in the power of prayer, and I'm going to continue to pray his promises where he said, I'll make your enemies become your footstool. That's what he said. In his word, he said, no weapon formed against you shall prosper. And it's not just an individual thing and something that Fred Hammond's saying. He's saying it well, but it speaks to our journey and our pilgrimage in this country. Yes, Father. No weapon formed against us. So I was in Montgomery, Alabama several years ago for E.J. Harrell's graduation from the University of Alabama, you know, and I'm sitting in the auditorium, Donna's there, Ernest is there, and the whole, you know, Donna's family, they come together, all of them come, and EJ walks across that stage. EJ had on his Afrocentric kente cloth stole and had something very provocative and very black on the top of his graduation. And I said to him, EJ, they're going to run us out of here. And EJ walked across that stage with the kind of confidence and attitude that every young black man ought to have. And his attitude was, how y'all like me now? Y'all don't know when to shout. How y'all like me now? You know, we couldn't come here in the 60s, but I'm graduating from University of Alabama right now. His daddy was born in Selma, Alabama, and later EJ's a lawyer now. And one time I was talking to Donna, said EJ was doing intern work in Selma, Alabama, and came home one day and told Mama, he said, Mama, the people need help, and I want to help them. Yeah. How many of you know whatever you prayed over your child, your grandchildren about, don't give up on them because God has not given up, and you got to believe the promises of God. And if a generation is 40 years, we may not be here when all this turns around, but I'm believing God is going to turn. I'm believing God that he turned it. That's what Bashan Mitchell said. He's turning it around for it. He's going to turn. There may be a storm out on the ocean right now. There may be some dark days ahead. There may be some suffering in front of us, but nobody can suffer the way we've suffered. We have made it through, and we kept trusting God through the Middle Passage. We kept trusting God in slavery. We kept trusting God in Reconstruction. They didn't teach y'all this in school. We kept trusting God through segregation. We kept trusting God through all the lynchings. I went to that museum in Montgomery, Alabama, and I was moved, the Museum of Social Justice, and I went in there, and I got on that campus, and I saw that sculpture with black slaves and the chains broken. And it got to me, and I went inside Maryland. I was with my friend, Bishop Emmett Johnson, and I see these hanging tombstones, and we're in the Georgia section, and Emmett gets very emotional. He's that kind of guy. I said, man, what's wrong? He said, I feel the spirits of my people, our ancestors. And we were in a section that had Augusta, Georgia, where he was from. And then I went over to the Virginia section, which I didn't think there was a Virginia section. And then I saw a tombstone, they had names and the days when the person was lynched, and it said Virginia Beach, Virginia, 1967. And I said to Bishop Willie Bradley and Bishop Johnson, I said, Virginia Beach didn't become a city till 1967. I said, so what are they trying to say? That somebody actually got lynched where I'm from in 1967? So I walked out of there, and we started thinking about Brother Hobson being on funeral details when we were younger in the military. And all these little towns we had to go in to do these services. And there were times that we were the only black people there was the people on the detail. And then we said, boy, God, all these people who died, they paid a price for us. And so, I'm going to pray these promises. And I'm going to believe God. But not only that, I'm going to do what the Apostle Paul said, Jacqueline. When you get up in the morning, he said, put on the whole armor. Put on the whole armor of God that you may be able to stand on that day. He said, take up the shield of faith and the sword of the Spirit, which is the word of God. And David said, everything you need is in the sanctuary, and y'all need to leave here today and tell your family and friends, you better find your way back to God's house. You better get your behind up and go back to God's house, because the old people used to say, this is the old ship of Zion. It has landed many a thousand. It's the old ship of Zion. Get on board. Huh? You got your ticket? Get on board. Get on board. Get on board. Because the Lord is my shepherd. I stood with them soldiers, prayed with them, gave them Bibles. They believe the Lord is my shepherd. I shall not want. So I was in this bunker one time with these soldiers, right? I'm a soldier too, but I'm in there with them. They got guns. I don't have guns now. This is real. We're not practicing like back here in El Paso. This is real, right? And so it's crowded in there. Because when the sirens go off, where we were, you had to find wherever they designate. You had to get there, right? And it was crowded in there. And we had this embedded reporter from Norway, and he fell apart. We had on these mop suits, these chemical suits. It's hot as I don't know what in that part of the world. It's hot. And we're there, but how many know when you're scared you don't care about the weather? We in there. And this soldier kept rubbing up against me. And I said, man, what's wrong with you? And, I'm a chaplain. But how many of you know that bullets and bombs and missiles don't care what your rank is? So in there, and so people react in different ways because you don't know how brave you are till you're in a situation. You can read about it all you want. You don't know what's in a person until they're in that situation. And I'm saying all this to say to us, no matter how these algorithms on the social media and stuff that we watch, they try to get you mad and stirred up all the time. So sometimes you just got to turn that stuff off. And then they want you to be afraid and fearful and scared of what other people say they can do to you. But you can't be afraid and you can't walk in fear. You got to walk in faith and you got to believe God that he surrounds you with his love and his care and that he'll prop you up on every leaning side and that no weapon formed against you shall prosper. And you can put on the whole armor of God. And so when they get the all clear, Brother Milner, I asked the soldier, I said, man, what was wrong with you? He said, I'm almost finished. He said, sir, I was just trying to get close to my higher power. Y'all missed that. See, I was a chaplain. Protestant chaplains wear a cross. That hymn said, down at the cross, where I first saw the light, and the burdens of my heart rolled away. It was there by faith and grace I received he said, getting closer, whether it was superstitious religion or not, he felt that as long as I was in there with them, everything was going to be all right. Well, I'm just a human being who loves God. But David said, don't put your trust in horses and chariots. Put your trust in God. And then he got excited and got to what he called Psalm 23. And he said, yea, though I walk through the valleys of the shadows of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. And surely goodness and mercy shall follow me and us all the days of our life. Why? Because we're going to dwell in the house of the Lord forever and ever and ever. And I believe God. I said, I believe God. I don't know about you. I believe God. Put my trust. We need to put our trust and our confidence in God. And you ought to make sure if you have children and grandchildren that you pray for them every day. You ought to pray and ask God to be a fence around them every day, because there are people out there who are emboldened and think that they can do whatever they want to do. But they're in for a rude awakening because they didn't know that the military trained a whole bunch of y'all. They didn't know. They're going to find out, though. They're going to mess around and find out. They're going to mess around and find out. So I'm closing. I'm finishing. I always chuckle, Marilyn, because I've been to Montgomery at least 3 times before I even knew you all. And of course, the Montgomery boycott, without Ralph Abernathy, Martin Luther King, Rosa Parks, we wouldn't be where we are right now. And then there are unnamed people in Montgomery and Selma and Congressman Lewis and Hosea Williams walked down that bridge in Selma and got their heads beat in and dogs sicked on them. But we living in that moment. I'm not going to wait till Black History Month to say this. No. But I kind of get a chuckle, Marilyn, when I think about that incident that happened with that boat. First thing went in my mind, Kate, I said, I wonder if Adrian's relatives down there, they down there. When the brother jumped in the water, because they said we can't swim. He was swimming like Aquaman. And the people didn't back down. Now, I don't know, we're not going to go back, but we're not going to back down. Yeah. Stand on your feet. So y'all learned today it's okay to be angry. Now, young people, when I was a kid, when I was your age, we couldn't show our anger towards our parents. And we couldn't